Hi, my name is Hannah, and if you're new here, I love to read. I love stories. This is my dog George, who is adorable. George loves to sleep in the background of my videos, most of them anyway. And so I thought it would be fun in this video to make George more of an active participant of the video. In this reading vlog, he's going to be choosing 3 books for me to read. Here are the 6 options that I will be giving him. And if you would like to know which 3 books he ended up picking for me and what I think of those 3 books, keep watching. The first book that George picked for me to read in this little reading vlog is The Grim Conclusion. This is the 3rd book in the series A Tale Dark and Grim. This is a series of fairy tale reimaginings / like twisted dark versions of fairy tales. I read the first 2 books in this trilogy last fall. I loved the first one, was a little bit disappointed by the second one. Now I'm really enjoying the 3rd one, and I'm wondering if maybe I just needed some time, if maybe I should have waited a little bit after reading the first one, and that's all I needed, because I feel like I read the second one right after finishing the first and was just disappointed because the first one I was surprised by, like very pleasantly surprised by, and really liked it. And then I didn't get that same like, ooh, this is kind of nice, this is kind of fun feeling when I read the second one. And like maybe if I just had a little bit more time to kind of like let it sit, kind of read other books, then maybe I would have been like, oh yeah, this is kind of nice. Because that's what I'm getting now, reading this one 6 months later. This and the previous books are each like a collection of fairy tales. I had mentioned with the first 2, I feel like those ones you could just pick up the book and read a random chapter out of the middle and you would be okay, because it's kind of like reading a collection of fairy tales. You don't have to start with the first fairy tale in the book. You can just read whichever one you want. And I think it's more important with this one that you read it from the beginning rather than just pick out a chapter. Traumatic experiences in that first story, and each story afterwards really references like, oh yeah, they had some shit go down, remember? And so if you don't know that, you're gonna be like, wait, what? So with this one, I would definitely recommend just reading the whole thing through, starting at the beginning and going from there. Yeah, I'm really liking it. This one, I think it has a good mix of revamping, putting a twist on fairy tales you and I already know, as well as also including fairy tales that we don't know, fairy tales that I'm not familiar with, fairy tales that I think the author of this book, Adam Gidwitz, I think he just came up with himself. I don't know, I'm having fun with it. I think that's all I want to say. But the 3rd book brought everything together. It wrapped up and explained the connections between all 3 books. It explored themes of trauma and like darker themes like that are real, not just these dark fairy tale elements of Cinderella's stepsisters chopping off their toes. Like, yes, there's dark and twisted elements like that, but they're also like more real things that you and I can relate to, and so I really liked that. I accidentally deleted my final review of The Grim Conclusion, so those are some general thoughts that I included in my mid-year freakout tag. Here are just a few more things that I'd like to highlight. Not to spoil too much of it, but there is a scene towards the end of this book where it gets kind of meta. That's all I'll say. Like, scenes like that are hard to pull off. They either really work or they really don't. This scene was included in this book because this series is for children. I think it just makes it very clear to the intended audience what this whole series is about, and that is that we all go through really hard things, and that those hard things, those challenges that we face, change us. They change the way we behave, the way we see life, the way we continue to live our lives after those things happen to us, and that's okay. It's also acknowledging that like it's okay to feel hurt by these things that are happening to you. Is teaching children to have compassion for themselves if they're facing these things, and also have compassion for others. And so I think this is a really great series. I really enjoyed it. Okay. I'm about halfway through Iron Flame now, so I thought I'd give you a little update on where I'm at, what I'm thinking. I'm liking it a lot. I feel like I'm kind of the oddball out when it comes to Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, and that I feel like I am having a little bit of a better time with this one than Fourth Wing. And part of that is I think that like my expectations with Iron Flame were kind of, I knew what I was getting into. Before reading this, like I knew, I'd heard people, it's all over the internet, all over BookTube. People were disappointed by this one. They felt like it was too similar to the first one. It was just that like the conflict between Violet and Xaden in the first half was forced and it didn't really feel real and like things like that. And so like people had a lot of complaints about this one and were very disappointed in it. And I get that. I see all of those things. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's valid. But there was nowhere to go but up. Does that make sense? I'm enjoying it. I am. Was the conflict between Violet and Xaden in the first half forced? Yes, it absolutely was. Another thing that I wish was a little bit different is just that, like in the beginning of this book, we're told that Indarna is now a teenager. She's going through her teenage phase. We get just like a little glimpse of that sassy, like Indarna as a sassy teenager. I was so excited to see more of that. But then I guess dragons in this world, when they're teenagers, they just like sleep through their adolescence. They just go into a coma and they sleep it off. I feel like that was just a missed opportunity. I think that would have been funny. This and Fourth Wing, there's no time for pause. Everything is life and death. We don't really understand how Violet specifically can just be going from these crazy situations into more crazy situations, right? I'm thinking of one in particular. She's being punished because she's being punished by this new professor. She leaves this detention punishment really hurt, like really, really dangerously hurt. And then the chapter ends and then a new one begins and she's fine. I get that there's magic in this world, but I would have liked to see like how did she go from almost dying, like literally almost dying one page, and then the next she's completely fine. Like I would have liked a little bit more explanation for that. We have a little bit of a situation that needs to be addressed. And that is, I had to return Iron Flame to the library yesterday before I'd finished it. This isn't a purposeful DNF. It was due at the library. I had to return it. I wasn't able to renew it. I don't have that much left to go. I think I have like 100 pages, maybe like 90 pages. As soon as I get the audiobook, I will continue reading Iron Flame and I will let you know what I think of it. So far, here's where I'm at. I said something about how I feel like it could have ended at the end of part 1 of the book. Yeah, I stand by that. Things are happening that I feel like should be interesting, but then they don't end up being as interesting as I think they're going to be. Does that make sense? Like they had to join forces with Griffin writers. Thought there would be like this bigger tension, but really it just turns out that Xaden's ex is one of these Griffin writers, and so she doesn't like Violet. That's literally all the tension there is. I feel like there should be more than just her jealousy of Violet. I still don't have anything to actively like dislike about the book. It's just fine. It's okay. It's fine. It's a good escape. There are dragons involved. There's some magic. That is my update on Iron Flame. Since I had to return the book to the library, I thought I'd have George pick a new book for me. So this morning he picked Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. I'm excited to read this book. Guys, it's Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth, guys. This is written by a Black author in the 1930s. It centers around a Black woman. It has a lot to say about like the Black experience, specifically in the 1930s and like the Harlem Renaissance and all of that. So, man, what a great day for me to start this. I did not plan that, I promise. Happy Juneteenth. I'm gonna get started reading this right now and I will keep you updated on my thoughts. I finished Their Eyes Were Watching God the other day while I was on a plane to Seattle. So welcome to Seattle. These are my thoughts on Their Eyes Were Watching God. As I was reading this, I felt like it should have been taught at my high school. It was not taught when I was in high school, but I feel like it should have been. And I was just asking myself, okay, why? First reason, I think the prose in this is very beautiful. Everything is described very poetically and just very descriptive and poetic in how it describes people, describes the community, the like feel of these communities that Janie is in. I think it also, the story is really beautiful, how it talks about love. Janie is married 3 times. The first time she's married, she's 16 and she's married to like a middle-aged man. She's married off because her grandmother, who has raised her, is dying and doesn't want her to be alone in the world. She marries Janie off to this like middle-aged man, and Janie's 16 and feels just really uncomfortable with the situation. Then she marries a man who's like 10 years older than her, who's very ambitious, has these big aspirations, and wants to be the mayor of the first all-black town in, you know, their county or whatever. He does all these big ambitious things, and that's all he wants, and because that's what he wants, he expects Janie to also want that. Does that make sense? And she doesn't really care to be the mayor's wife. She just wants someone to love her, and he loves what he's doing more, like being mayor and stuff. And so like then there's that whole relationship, and he dies. Then she gets married a 3rd time, and this time he's poor. He has to like go work out in the muck is what they call it. She ends up joining him because she wants to. She wants to be with him all the time, and they just love each other so much. And so just like seeing that progression, seeing that she does finally get the love that she wants and deserves, it's a beautiful story. This is also interesting, as I mentioned before. This is about a Black woman. It has some interesting conversations about race within the Black community. Janie, our main character here, is like a fairer-skinned, lighter-skinned Black woman, and there's another woman that she meets named Mrs. Turner, who also has fairer skin and just does not like people that have darker skin than her. But it's kind of this weird, like, clearly your darker skin is an indicator of who you are and how you are as a person, and I thought that was interesting. There's also some mention of Native Americans in this book at one point, and they aren't talked about very kindly either, and I just thought that was interesting that like because white people were so racist and treated Black people so poorly, when they were given the chance, they would treat people of their own race or other minority groups the same way they were treated by the white people. I thought that was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. It opened my eyes to that experience. So I highly recommend. Hello. I am back from Seattle, back home, also back to reading Iron Flame. It has been about a week since I last talked to you, and about 2 weeks since I paused reading Iron Flame. I got it from the library yesterday and was reading like the last couple of chapters that I had read just to kind of remind myself of where I left off. I'm on chapter 59 now, and I have about 70 pages left in the book. So I'm just gonna sit here and I'm gonna finish this, and then I'm gonna give you my final update on Iron Flame, and we're gonna call this a vlog. Okay? I'm here to give you my final thoughts on Iron Flame. So shortly after I filmed my last update, I stopped reading Iron Flame. I did some doodling in my journal and watched Doctor Who instead. I was trying to think of why. Part of it is that, yeah, I had like a 2-week hiatus in the middle of this book because I had to return it to the library and then wait until another copy was available. That definitely impacted feeling a little bit reluctant to get back into it. Another thing, another contributing factor is that this is very similar to Fourth Wing in that the entire book is very intense. This book ramps up very quickly in getting you to feel that like every scenario that they're facing is life and death. And so like from the very beginning, everything feels intense. So by the time I got to like page 500, and like that's supposed to be like the climax, right? We're supposed to be getting to the actual climax of the book at that point. Wasn't feeling like it was that intense. I wasn't feeling like it was really the climax because we'd already ramped up to this point at the very beginning of the book and just remained up here at this level. So at that point I was just like, is anything really intense anymore? Is anything really that important anymore? I did get back into it the next day and I did finish it, and it does get marginally more intense and more climactic, because this book does end with like a big battle. So yeah, I finished it. I mentioned this before, but I think I had a better experience with this than with Iron Flame because it was more in line with what I was expecting it to be. Fourth Wing, however, I expected it to like blow my mind, and it didn't. It was good, but it didn't blow my mind. And because it didn't meet that expectation, I was disappointed in it. When things don't meet my expectations, I'm sorry, I'm disappointed when things don't meet my expectations. The fact that this one did meant that I had a better time with it. That's pretty much all I have to say about Iron Flame. It was a good, fun time. Now, let's wrap this video up, shall we? You've reached the end of the video. Let's quickly conclude this video, and I'll remind you of the 3 books I read. First was The Grim Conclusion. This is the 3rd and final book in the Dark and Grim trilogy by Adam Gidwitz. This is a children's / middle grade series retelling fairy tales with a dark twist. Then I read Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. This is about a young Black woman finding and then losing love and just growing up and that whole experience. So that's Their Eyes Were Watching God. Then between all of these books, I was also reading Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is the sequel to Fourth Wing, which both of these books are about a dragon rider named Violet who is at a war college academy training students to ride dragons. Those are the 3 books I read. Of those 3 books, I would say Iron Flame is a really good escape, really good magical escape. If you just want to be in a different world and you want some action, you want some dragons, Iron Flame, that's what I would recommend there. If you want something that's a little bit more impactful, that feels more important and meaningful, yeah, if you want something a little bit more serious, I would definitely recommend Their Eyes Were Watching God. Like I said before, I wish I had read that when I was in school because I felt like I learned so much from Janie's experiences, and I wanted to talk about what I learned with other people and see what they got from that book. And then if you want something that's kind of in the middle, that's a little bit magical, but also touches on serious topics, The Grim Conclusion or the Dark and Grim trilogy. This was great because it is written for children, for like middle school age kids. This book in particular in this trilogy calls out why it was written, and that was to help kids recognize the hard things that they're going through and how that can affect them, and that they aren't alone in going through hard things. And those are all of the books that my cute sleepy boy picked for me to read. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've watched to this point in the video, comment down below the puppy dog emoji. And with all that said, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for listening to me ramble about books, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!